Good morning. So we often see in commencement speeches a very similar trend in which I, to some of you, a total stranger, give you some overgeneralized piece of advice in the form of a challenge. You know, I challenge you to work hard and fail and listen to your heart and follow your dreams. But to be honest with you, I think doing so is an injustice to all of the hard work you've put in for the past 4 years. I would be thereby assuming that whatever advice I give to you in the next few short minutes is somehow more valuable than the lessons you've taught yourself during your time at Stetson. So instead, I would like to pose a challenge to the others in the stadium today. Whether you are a guest, family member, friend, faculty, or staff, I have a challenge for you. The idea for this challenge actually came about when I was reflecting on my journey with this class and thinking about how we are viewed by those around us. And I thought of a particular moment that actually occurred at a Board of Trustees meeting. And I will not mention names, as this is with good intentions that I bring this up. But a professor said something that really hit me. When asked, why don't students want to study abroad? This professor replied that it may be a generational thing, that kids these days just aren't ready for the challenge of going abroad. Now, having studied abroad twice myself, I can say I was a little taken aback. But once again, it is with good nature that I must say to that professor, we should take another look at kids these days. So my challenge is this. For those of you watching your family member, friend, or student graduate today, for the next 24 hours at least, refrain from using the phrase, kids these days. Kids these days is usually followed by various criticisms of the students sitting before me now. They're criticisms of our disdain for buying diamonds or our appetite for laundry detergent pods. But many times, these phrases are usually followed by a falsehood. Now, don't get me wrong. There are a lot of things that the class of 2019 will have to fix and improve upon as we move throughout our lives. But some of these criticisms I simply find amusing. Here are a few of my favorites. Kids these days are lazy. Kids these days are bad communicators. They're entitled, don't like challenges. And kids these days just aren't ready for the real world. When I hear these criticisms, even from people within this generation, I am surprised that people feel this way. This is simply not what I have seen at Stetson University. Every time I hear the phrase, kids these days are lazy, I think about the over 140 student organizations on this campus, the dozens of students holding various leadership positions, hosting 3 to 5 events per month, still having time for a job, and still finishing their schoolwork. And when I hear that kids these days are bad communicators, I think about the 351 Stetson students currently learning their second, third, or fourth language, and the 50-plus international students who have had to travel from another country and take classes in a language that they don't speak at home. Every time I hear the phrase, kids these days are entitled, I think about the many Stetson students who have taken an internship for which they work 30 hours per week, unpaid, in a position that would have been paid 10 to 20 years ago, and still knowing that there may not be a job offer at the end. And when I heard that kids these days don't like challenges, I thought about the Stetson students who I have met, who own their own businesses, have studied abroad, put in hours training for their sport and still do their schoolwork, or have created musical masterpieces beyond what words can tell. And my favorite criticism of all, is that kids these days aren't ready for the real world. For those of you who have uttered this phrase, I can assure you this. If the real world is unforgiving, the Stetson graduates of 2019 have been trained to be their own toughest critics. If the real world is heartbreaking, the Stetson graduates of 2019 have witnessed the tragic passing of some of their own peers and mentors and know what it means to have to strengthen a community. If the real world is destructive, the Stetson graduates of 2019 have survived 2 hurricanes and were still able to return to their normal routines. And if the real world has a low tolerance for failure, then the Stetson graduates of 2019 need not worry, for they are sitting in front of you today. And I must confess that I lied because I do have a challenge for the class. Be proud of being kids these days. When they say you will never own a house, say, that's okay. I would rather have a passport full of stamps than a house full of stuff. And when they say that the planet will overheat and explode before you have grandchildren, then say, well, this is the world we inherited, but at least we're trying to fix it. But most of all, when they say that kids these days are going to fail in the real world, say, not Stetson kids. So guests, families, friends, faculty, and staff, it is my honor to celebrate our kids these days and present to you the class of 2019.